What's up, guys? Tyler here from Vant Trading. I just want to take this time to go over, since it's the end of May, I want to go over a couple of my best winning trades that I had last month, just to show you, maybe you can learn from some of these things. So what I do, I trade Forex. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you one of the best commodity trades I had, one of the best indice trades I had, and one of the best pair trades I had. So without further ado, let me share my screen and we will go through them. So first and foremost, I wanted to show you that I am going to show you my USD CAD trade, my US oil trade, and my US 30 trade. And I want to start off with the dollar index because the whole last 2 months. So what you saw with the dollar index is you saw some nice consolidation, and it held this this nice range here for a couple months, and we finally saw a breakout towards the end of May. I was looking at this first breakout right here towards the end of May, and then the beginning of June, the full breakout. So that's where my main trades came from. But let's hop on into it. Since UCAD is pretty similar to dollar index, it was pretty simple. It was a pretty simple trade. So what I was looking at was, we were about right here when I was looking at it, because I saw it was starting to, it created this lower high. It kind of rejected this area right here for support, and now this was resistance. So I was looking bearish, but not quite yet. And if you look over here, we had this big gap fill that had to come down and fill. So I'm just going to go bearish. Just going to gravitate more towards that gap fill because that's just what they do. So if we move forward a little bit here, I'll show you my thought process. Okay, it's moving down. It's moving down. That's a big move down. So if we can break those lows, all right, broke those lows. So now I'm looking for a short. I'm going to be looking for a retest of this level, this area. So if it closed below this whole entire resistance area, so I'm looking now for a retest of that area. And if you look, usually with big movements like this, you'll see a little retracement towards that area. So I'm not going to be very picky. What I did was I went down to the lower time frame. If you look, I drew my fibs from this point to this point because this was the last major move it made through those lows. And it hit that 50% retracement level, which is where I like to short. So I ended up shorting right there off that wick. And then my stop was back into this zone. Let me zoom back out for you. Basically, what I was looking at is I didn't want it to come back above this level right here, because if it came back above that level, I wouldn't be too confident in the entry, because it should have some momentum down and it should be gravitating more towards that gap fill. So I placed my stop at a 60 pip stop. And ultimately, I took profits along the way, but I wanted to see a gap fill down to this area right here, which is about 360 pips. So let me zoom back in for you and kind of walk you through my trade here. So it's still very heavy momentum. And of course, it's going to have a little bit of hesitation, so I wasn't too concerned here. I'd be more concerned if it came all the way back here towards my entry, because then it would show a little more sign of weakness with that push down. So it continues to push down. And what I'm looking at here is for a stacking position, and as well as a way to secure some profits. So when I saw this move here through these highs that it couldn't hold, I'm now looking for another stack position, because it grabbed all of the liquidity, all the stops above this area. It grabbed them all and then pulled back. So now I'm looking for another entry right around this area. And what I'll probably do is draw my fibs shortly. I think I ended up drawing right around here, and is hitting that optimal trade entry area. That I have been using, and it's right around this area that I think I took my second short with a stop. I took a little larger stop because this I was planning on holding as well for the long term. So this one I moved down as well, and that's another 5-to-1 trade. So you have two 5-to-1 trades, and let me zoom back in for you. there's my second entry. And let's see here, it's consolidating a little bit, and then it's going to end up breaking down. So that's a big whistle. I didn't have a hard stop, luckily, because what I was looking at on the lower time frame was, again, it came back up to retest this and grabbed the rest of the liquidity right up here from all the short sellers. So I was, not to mention, it didn't close here, so I was still confident in it, and it didn't shake me out yet, because I still like that gravitation towards the gap fill. So as you see, it continues to move down. Let me speed it up for you here. Big move down. If you take a look, this right here is, June 1st, dollar index. I always look back to the dollar index to verify, the strength of the dollar index and where that's headed, because, USD CAD is going to follow the dollar index because it's the US dollar index. So June 1st, it was still very strongly bearish. So I went back to UCAD and I was like, okay, well, I guess I lost my replay here, but the replay was actually this big bearish move. Let me pull it back for you so I can show you where my exits were. And replay right there. So what I was looking at was, after that big bearish move, I'm going to look to start securing some profits. And you can see some hesitation here, which makes sense because that was the low of this area back here. So I'm pretty sure I secured my first position right here. The second one, which was 3.5 to 1. So I secured that one and left this one to finish the gap fill. And what it do, 2 bars later, it filled the gap. And that's where I ended up exiting my full position right around here in this consolidation, because it ended up coming down and filling the gap. So that was my first trade I wanted to go over, and that was the best trade because, this was looking more long-term. It was more of a few-day swing trade because, the dollar index after 2 months was finally breaking out of its consolidation. All that negative news with the dollar as far as the Fed stimulus, Euro having good monetary policy stimulus, everything was looking for the dollar to go down and break out. So in return, I took that UCAD, as well as Canada was looking more bullish because of the good oil sentiment that was pushing oil up, and Canada's a big oil currency. So everything was looking in my favor in this trade. So it ended up working out really well. Let me now move on to US 30. So US 30 was another big trade I had for the month. Now I'll show you what I was looking at for this. I took this right around, so let's move it here. So it has this nice level, obviously, because it rejected it here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's rejected it so many different times, as well as, on the other side is, the long side. So I was looking at this for a possible long and a rejection. So, let's look at it. And once I saw this big move down, I was pretty confident that there's a huge side of liquidity there that needs to be grabbed. So once it closed through there, and then I saw this, it's wick down, big bullish move up. What I was doing was I was looking for a retest of the wick of this red candle right here, because that's the start of the bearish move that went down. And this is what market makers are doing. They're pulling the market down to grab liquidity, then to go up. So I was looking for a retest right here. And I'll show you, I get the retest right there. And as well as, not to mention, what I wanted to do as well is draw my fibs. And it ended up hitting that 50% retracement, which is what I like to which is what I like to trade. So I was very confident in taking that long position there, because it was a good risk reward. My risk was right around this wick here. So it was, it was about a 4,000 pip stop. But then my take profit, I ultimately wanted to see it come up to here, but I wasn't gonna be greedy. So what I then wanted to see, my first initial take profit was going to be this area of consolidation right there. And then my second take profit was going to be this area of consolidation. And then my third and final take profit was going to be right around here. So, let's kind of go through this and see what's going on. So we're going to see it pull up. And as you can see, it's creating a nice head and shoulders. There's a shoulder, there's the head, and there's a shoulder. So what we'd like to see now is it to break out of this neckline, which is what it's doing. So there it goes, and it filled that head and shoulders. So what I did was right after this bar, because I see some kind of hesitation, right here is where I got out of, I think, a third of my position, and that was about 3-1. Now my next take profit was going to be breaking these highs, this consolidation, then to this level. And then if we push through this, we had a little pullback, but I wasn't too concerned about that pullback because I think we're in a good position and we, already secured a third profit. So I'm giving it a little bit of wiggle room at this point because it is US 30 and it's not going to, it's going to have some hesitation along the way because it's got a lot of headway and resistance. So as it's pushing up right here, as it's breaking out, a lot of the times you want to get out partial profits with momentum. It's a lot easier to get out that way. So I took another third off there, and now I'm sitting in a third of my position. And the last third of my position ended up being right here at 6.5 to 1. And if we go forward, now I also, not to note, I did set a trailing stop below this area because if it came below this area, I didn't really like it anymore. So my trailing stop was going to be around, right here. So let's see where it goes. Let's move it forward. And there, it hit my last take profit right here. So that was my US 30 play for May. That was my best, one of my other best plays. And as you see, that was more of a swing trade as well. I was in that for a few days. But I really liked the confluence I had behind it with this consolidation, the positive market sentiment, the Fed boosting up the market, everything boosting it up with this liquidity grab. So it's a very good trade. And last but not least, we'll go over US oil because I'm sure everybody's seen oil have that negative run back in April. And then, once they opened back up, it had that big push down, but all the OPEC meetings and the rate, the cuts and, the supply, everything was kind of getting boosted back up. And they were, the Trump came out and said they had no problem with supply. So that boosted up even more. So what I liked and what I also noticed on oil was a big gap fill up here that it ultimately needs to fill. And it's not even quite there yet. That's why I'm still in this partial position. But let me show you when I ended up getting in. I ended up getting in right around you. So I also want to note that I didn't get in any through this because everybody was still expecting oil to go down negative and I didn't want that risk to me. So when I started seeing a perk up, kind of hit this area right here, I was like, all right, it's consolidating strongly there. So I was confident in taking buys once it broke above this level and held. And then not to note, this run up here is when Trump came out saying there's no problem with supply, when they had all those cuts in production. So it was looking pretty good. So I was looking for an entry somewhere in this area for a gap fill. And what I did was I went down to the lower time frame. And let's see here, I went back. My entry was, bear with me 1 second. It was, I know what day it was. So it was the 29th. So I drew these fibs here. And as you see, it came back and retested that beautiful level I like to look at. So my stop was about 100 points back down to these lows. And I want to see a full gap fill up to this area. So I'm still in it, but what I did was, let me kind of replay this for you. There you go. So let me zoom in. So what I'm looking at here is it had this nice resistance right there and this nice support right here. So I wanted to see if it could kind of hold up here, because if it could hold up here and not come back and retest this resistance, maybe retest this area, this level of support, then I like it to kind of continue and break up because it wasn't, the bulls are taking over. So If you move forward, you see it retested there, and then it closed bullish, and it's creating this level of support right here. And then, so that's where I took my buy. I took it after, right around here, after it was kind of hesitating down on the lower time frame. To go in the lower time frame, it was going back and forth. It closed below, broke up, and then it came back and then retested this area, which is where I was looking at to get in. So I was pretty confident after this, and I ended up getting in right around this level after this bullish candle, this bullish move up. And so what I did was I then set my stop to this level. Yeah, so it's 94 pips. And as it was going up, it's pushing up, there, finally broke through. And as it broke through, I wanted to kind of secure a little bit. It was still 3-1, so it was good. So I secured, I think, about a third of my position just in case it was a fake out. And it's now going to break out, but then it ended up retesting, which is a great sign. So I ended up getting in more after the retest, holding bullish. The stop down here and take profit up to, let's see, up to this level. And then if you move forward, it's holding that nice level. It's holding it. It broke through, but never closed. So what I'm looking at is for it to kind of continue to push up. It's consolidating. There's the push up. And keep in mind, then my next take profit for the first position would be this level, this negative 100 level. If you push it forward there's my second take profit hit for the first position. And I'm not taking anything off of the second position yet, but at this point, my stop loss is now moved up to this level of support now. And so it's a risk-free trade. And now after this next bar, I ended up taking partial profit from the second position, which ended up being about 2-1, just to secure some profits. Now both trades are set at break even, except for this is set at break even, the second one. The first one is set with the trailing stop at 2-1. So now what I'm looking for is it's kind of curling down, and this is a beautiful pattern that I like to see. And if I get my rolling tool out, what I want to see is then, it's going to curl down, and then boom, it's going to shoot up to this level. But so I'm looking for then a final, looking for a final take profit up to this area for both of them, and then that'll be it. So I'm still in it, but I took most of my profit, or a third of my profits, off of both, and that was my best commodity trade of the month. So those are my top 3 trades I made for the month for one pair, one commodity, and one indice. I hope you learned something from those. And if you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to reach out. And yeah, so safe trading.